Okay, we're recording. So,
Okay.
guys, I'm so excited to be able to introduce you to Katie. She is just the most fabulous person. I just absolutely love her.
Oh,
And so, Katie has just completed a 12-month coaching program with me, a one-on-one coaching program. And I know that for some of you out there, that just seems like a huge commitment. And so, I thought it would be fun to be able to interview Katie on what her experience has been inside of this coaching program so that it's coming straight from someone who's been able to experience it from the other side of the fence, right? So I can say that it's as fabulous as I want, but that could be biased, right? So let's hear straight from somebody who has actually been through this coaching program. So Katie, why don't you start out by sharing a little bit about maybe some of like the apprehensions that you had or things that
yeah.
you were like a little bit like, oh, I don't know, when you first started, because I think that's where people all start, right? They all kind of start
Oh,
in a
yeah.
spot where they're like, so start there. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, for me, one of the big reasons I went into like looking for a coach was also the reason I was afraid to sign up with a coach, which was that I feel like I struggle with time management, procrastination, things like that. And I had this thought in my head that I just was not a finisher. I couldn't finish things. If I started something, I was going to let people down. And when I first talked with Leah, it was this great thing. And even just in that discovery session, I was like, oh, this is awesome. I'm so like, I already feel better about things. And I talked to my husband and I said, okay, if I want to work with her, here's what here are the options. Here's what we have. And we both felt like the year option was definitely the way to go. But I was so afraid that I would let her down, let my husband down, and like that we would have invested this money and then I would just flop and fail and fall on my face and not finish the program or, not be able to complete weekly assignments or whatever it might be. And that it would end up not only not being worth it for me, but that my husband would be disappointed at having spent the money and that Leah would feel like I wasn't worth the investment of her time. And so it like the money for us was a no-brainer. It made perfect sense. But it was that thinking about, can I actually make it to a meeting one night a week for a year? And can I actually complete what's asked of me in between that? Because I knew going into it that I was also going to be getting pregnant with another child and that was going to throw some craziness into the mix. And I don't know, I was so intimidated by my own, I guess by the idea of my own failure.
Mm-hmm. So how about you share with everybody right now how many kids you have right now?
As of this moment, not including the one in utero, I have 5. My oldest is 11.
Okay, awesome. So, and Katie is literally like a week away from having her baby number 6. So,
Yep.
it ended up being such great timing for all of that. Okay, so after you just like jumped in and you're just like, you know what, this is the thing I need to do, right? I need to get the coaching for what I need it for, and I can't let the thing stopping me be the like I love how you said that. It was the perfect words, actually, the way that you described it, because you said the thing that I needed coaching for was the thing that was stopping me from getting coaching at first, right? Like that was
Yep.
what had stopped you up until this point. And so I
Yep.
love that you put your trust in me and you were like, hey, let's go for this. Let's do this. So tell me a little bit, or tell our listeners a little bit about what was the journey like for you. So what was it like kind of starting out? Did you feel like the homework was overwhelming? Did you feel like you could accomplish it? Was it doable? What was it like? So maybe start with that part, and then you can tell us a little bit about like what was it like from a client perspective with just feeling like you either had to meet requirements or feeling like what was the, I guess, overall like environment of the coaching scenario, right? Because there's a
Yeah.
lot of different styles out there. So maybe just share from your experience what it felt like for you.
Okay. So, I remember distinctly that the right at the beginning, we spent time coming up with a plan. here's what we're going to tackle first. Here's what we're going to do after that. And for me, that was actually really helpful because I knew that like if there was something that was, you know, big or hairy or that I wasn't sure about, it could wait. Although we did tackle some of the big hairy stuff at the beginning, but it made me feel like I'm not tackling all of my problems all at once. Mm-hmm. We're spreading it out and there's a plan and there's a strategy. And it kind of just made me feel like, okay, Leah knows what she's doing, even if I have no idea, which was good. And then within just, I think it was like the second or third call, we had this huge, I mean, it would be a breakthrough. I don't know what else you would call it. And it was this monumental, like seismic shift in how I thought about myself and my life and how I approach things, which ended up being really crucial for the rest of the journey. But yeah, it was awesome. It was really good. And I remember, like I said, being intimidated by the homework or assignments or whatever, because I know that you can't just change without doing anything. That doesn't work. But I was really pleased to discover that not only was it pretty manageable and most of the time really not a big deal at all. In fact, much of it was really just focusing on how I thought. It wasn't even, you know, complete this journaling or complete this assignment or whatever that existed, but a lot of times it was, okay, focus on thinking this way this week or whatever, which was totally manageable. But the other thing that was great is that whenever I would come back to Leah and talk about, okay, what have we done over the last week? What has been accomplished? Or how did you feel about it? If there were weeks when I didn't quite do everything we talked about, there was no condemnation. I never felt criticized. I never felt like I had let her down or, you know, that it was slowing me down or anything like that. Instead, I felt like Leah was recognizing that I made progress in the way that I needed to, and that some of those things can wait because this is a long game, not something that you just do overnight. So that was actually really great because it helped me feel encouraged to keep moving forward rather than feeling discouraged thinking that I was stuck. Mm-hmm. I never felt stuck. I always felt like I was going somewhere, even if it was just a little at a time.
Mm-hmm. And I remember after, like at the beginning when we had that big breakthrough, when you had that big breakthrough, I remember that you came to me right after that. And do you remember what you said to me? And then your husband was like, absolutely. Do you remember exactly what it was that you said? You said,
I'm not sure which thing you're talking about, but I know what I thought.
If this was the only,
yeah, I think I said something like, if this was all I got out of it, like if nothing else changed, if this was the only thing I got out of this, it was totally worth what I paid. Like hands down. And I maintain that is still true. Like I've gotten way more from it now since then, but even if that was all I got, it was worth it.
Yeah, it just gives me chills. I just love it. And I love too that your husband, like he agreed with you, like 100%. And he said, if you get nothing else from this, I'm already fine with the money that we've invested. Like,
yeah.
Right?
Well, and it was really interesting because, as is always the case with life, within the weeks following that, we had lots of opportunities to see whether or not that limiting belief was really gone or if it had kind of stuck around. And my husband was really amazed at how much differently I was dealing with things as a result of kind of wiping my slate of that thing.
Yeah.
And it was really liberating for me. It was a very freeing feeling to go, oh, this isn't banging on the inside of my brain all the time. So it was good.
I love it. I remember, you kind of mentioned that it was like, it used to be like this, loud screaming voice type thing, mm-hmm. being like, you know, hitting you down on this particular thing. And then it was like a faint whisper. Like, it was like, oh, I can kind of like, it's kind of a thing, but it's not a thing anymore, like type thing. Right.
Yeah.
One of the things that I loved about our coaching calls too, is sometimes you would get to the call and you say, well, not too much happened this week, but there was just this one thing. And then all of a sudden you start getting into it and you're like, oh, this led to this and this led to this. And I loved our coaching calls because so many times, like, we didn't have one call that didn't have some sort of an aha breakthrough.
Uh-huh.
Even if they were just the smallest shifts where you would make some sort of connections, and it was so fun. Okay.
Yeah, well, and I noticed that a lot of those small shifts ended up having much more impact than I initially would have expected.
Hmm.
So that was cool.
Yeah, which I think is important for people to recognize, because a lot of people think that
Mhm.
a major shift in their life is supposed to have a fireworks show, right? And
Mhm.
oftentimes it's literally just like a, huh, I didn't think of it that way. And then all of a sudden
Mhm.
it's kind of like getting on an airplane and it's like that 5-degree shift and you end up in a different country, right? So,
Yep.
yeah. Okay, cool. Here's the next question. So, what type of impact has this had for you? Just kind of over the year, like over the span. What type of an impact has it had for you? Just kind of maybe in your daily life, or that type of a, when you look at like, well, you kind of mentioned with the big one, but is there anything else that you just kind of want to mention there? If I mean, you've kind of covered that, but
Well, there were a few things. Again, it was subtle, right? It wasn't like, the difference between turning the light on off. Exactly. There were lights that came on, but it was, if lights come on a little at a time and suddenly there's more light than you expected, but it didn't happen all in one go. Um, and it's really nice to reflect back, because I can look and I can see where I started and where I am now. And I've noticed that some of the big differences have to do with how I choose to use my time. I feel like I'm better able to make the right choice about what I do with my time. And more than that, I'm able to own that choice, and to feel like, yes, that's the choice I made for the right reasons, and I'm happy with it and I'm okay with it. And I don't have this nagging sense of, oh, but what if I did this instead, or I should have done this, or blah blah blah, which was kind of always a thing. um, and as the mom of five soon to be six kids, time is not something I really have very much of. And so learning how to feel good about what I do with that time, regardless of whether or not what I do with it changes, was a big deal.
mhm.
And I do feel like I've become more productive, and like I have become a better parent through all of this, because I feel like understanding how to shift my thinking has helped me approach things with my kids differently and with my spouse, which is awesome, because who doesn't need that? I mean, we all have relationships that every relationship could be improved from some sort of shift in how we think. Um, but it was also just feeling like I have more power over my own life.
Mhm.
Like, life isn't happening to me. I can make things happen in my life.
Mhm.
And that was a really valuable takeaway. Um, and I guess I just, like, as I look back on those 12 months, I can see where I started, I can see where I am, and I think differently and I feel differently, and I don't get as bogged down by a lot of the things that would have gotten me discouraged or frustrated, or would have told me to give up, or things like that. And so, um, sorry, my phone's being weird. Um, but I feel like I'm better able to move past obstacles. They don't stop me or trip me. Instead, it's like, oh, I can get past this and I'm okay. And that's been huge. And to be able to do that while pregnant with my sixth child is enormous, because look at any of my other pregnancies, and those were by far the least productive times of my life. I did not do stuff. And so to be able to move forward and progress while pregnant with my sixth kid, like that's big stuff. That's big stuff.